Oh shit. Here we go again.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live match reaction show on Football Tour Podcast. My name is Ozzie, and I'm your host for this evening. I try my best to avoid doing this show today, as I was not in a good mood after the game due to the defeat against Chelsea. But sometimes better to just express yourselves in these kind of moments. So I thought let's do a show tonight. That's why I couldn't promise what time I was doing the show earlier in the watch along. But here we are. So during the show, we will talk about the main sort of highlights of the game, so specific moments that happened. I'll give you my verdict. I'll give you my thoughts on the squad and the issues surrounding Slot and his management style at the minute. And then we'll do player ratings. And if there is anyone that wants to call in, a link should be pinned in the live chat. If not, just drop me a comment and then I'll add a link later on if it's not already. Actually, do you know, I'll try and do it now if I can. Um, But yeah, if you do want to call in, just drop me a message and I'll add a link like later on in the chat. So let's start with the game. Let's start with the match highlights into what occurred during this fixture. And I'm going to try and be as neutral as possible. I actually thought Liverpool started the game decently in terms of the way they played, which is not a difficult task because let's face it, we've been absolutely shocking the last 2 3 weeks. So the benchmark wasn't set very high, but the team played better football in comparison to the last 2 3 games, and especially in the opening 15 minutes. We were moving the ball around really well, looked a bit sharper, but the opening goal was a dagger to Liverpool's heart. Concede scores a rocket out of nowhere to break the deadlock. Questionable defending from McAllister firstly, who misread the whole move there, gave Caicedo acres of space to drive with the ball and take that shot. But before that shot, it was even taken. Van Dijk, his position has to be questioned. Why did he leave such a big gap? Um, or was he expecting someone else to make the block? For me, that was poor decision making from both players. In terms of after that moment, Gakpo um, produced a low cross from the left-hand side. So Bosley, who was playing a bit more further up top in terms of in that more advanced 10 role, he applied a shot from 6 yards out, blocked by Chile. Not an easy opportunity because he had about 2 3 Chelsea players there. So not a lot to aim at, but still a chance nonetheless. And then moments later, Kirkes was through on goal, literally on the left side of the 6 yard box. Tries to find Salah, who was in and around the box, but wasn't really in a sort of like a clear sort of position. He had two defenders around him. In the end, the ball got swept away. For me, in that moment, I know he's not probably in the best of form, but Kirkes should have gone for goal there. Got to be a bit selfish. He could have just placed it into the bottom corner. It would have been a goal. So for me, maybe should have gone for goal himself. And then from Chelsea point of view, Garnacho has a shot from the edge of the box, which hits the post very, very close from the home side. And then there was a penalty shout for Chelsea. So like nudges Garnacho to the ground. Never a penalty in a million years. He was literally auditioning for the Olympics the way he was diving. So no, I definitely disagree with that one. And in terms of Mohamed Salah, um, he had a good moment where he crosses the ball with the outside of his boot to find Isak. Isak produces the header, but unfortunately for him, his effort just goes over the bar. Now, in terms of second half, some changes had to be made, and the first change that was made was bringing on Florian Wirtz to replace Conor Bradley. So that made Szoboszlai shift over as a right back once again. From Versus point of view, had an instant impact. He produced um, a flick behind him to find Salah, who he's a right-footed shot towards goal, but completely missed the target. For me, should have buried that one. Should have gone for the other post rather than the near post in that moment. Groundberg, moments later, had a shot from the right side of the box, straight at the keeper in that moment. Salah was a bit all over the place with his shooting, had numerous chances where he cut in and shot. Most of those efforts went high and wide. And from Chelsea's point of view, they had an attack with Cucurella providing a cross. Neto has a header but Robertson makes a block in that moment. But Liverpool finally got the equaliser. Nice layoff from Isak, whether he meant to or not, is still an assist on his record. Gakpo finishes from point blank range with a half volley. And then we had another great chance moments later where Verts passes the ball to Salah. Salah cuts in, hits a shot, completely miscues it. And in that moment, he should have looked up because he had Isak and he had Gakpo in the 6 yard area. So for me, should have picked out one of those players. And then Liverpool, for me, had a penalty shot. Reece James pretty much, smacks Isak on the face and, he ends up falling down. Nothing was given. And the ironic thing about that, we had a similar incident against Galatasaray and we conceded a penalty. I know it's two different competitions, so different standards in terms of officiating, but football is a universal game, so it should be similar rules, more or less for every competition. But in this matter, it was waved away and nothing was given. From Chelsea, they brought on two youngsters in Gittins and Esteval, and they made the impact very immediate. Tried to test Mamadashvili with a couple of shots. Mamadashvili literally made two saves in that same phase of play. And then Szoboszlai makes a great block for Gittins, who is coming from that left-hand side. And in any other given day, he probably would have, gone through and started into the back of the net. But because of Szoboszlai's recovery speed, he was able to make that block. But literally, with a flick of a finger, he was on the other side, presenting an attack. Um, and he was past the ball on the edge of the box, hits a shot, just goes wide. But in that moment, I thought he maybe should have done better there. Should have hit the ball with his laces rather than with the side foot. If he smacked it with his laces, you'd have expected it to go on target. Because he went for the side foot, pretty much just dragged it wide in the end. And Chelsea, to be fair, they were knocking on the door. They had a header from Enzo from point blank range that hit the post in the 90th minute. Uh, Jones had a shot as well inside the box, which went over the bar. But Esteval, had the moment very late on. Uh, Poor defending again. Robertson unaware of his surroundings, and Esteval pretty much had a tap in to seal the deal for Chelsea. So look, overall, very frustrating, that we've lost this game. But I'll also be honest at the same time, we didn't deserve to win. Um, the most disappointing about this defeat is the level of our performance, where the opening 10 minutes of each half, we looked positive and it just fizzled out instantly after that. And another concern for me was the fact that we couldn't beat a makeshift Chelsea defense. Even worse, during the game, defenders were dropping like flies. They had to make two substitutions in the centre back area, and we never capitalized. That's the kind of thing you see a lot of top managers do over the years, where if there's a weak point in the team, they would literally exploit that. Whether it's you throwing the game plan out the window, realizing they have a weak area in that part of the pitch, they'll literally, have two, three players in that side to try and outnumber the opposition. And that's how you take advantage of the team. In other sports, in boxing, that's what you would do as well. If you know someone has a recurring injury, you try and aim for that sport. And, in football terms, it could have been applied as well. And for me, there was just no real game plan. The substitutions needs to be questioned. The Endo one, that's the biggest talking point for me. Why did we bring on Endo, last 5-10 minutes of the game? He's the type of player you bring on when you need to, shut shop. And I said it during my watch along. When I saw Endo, I wasn't angry or annoyed. In my head, I'm thinking, oh, Arsenal's, he's wanting to take a point from this game, which for me, following a team that's supposed to be, one of the best teams in the country and all sorts, that's not how we play. That's not our philosophy. We should be trying to go for the win, try and make it 2-1. And, the rhythm was towards us. We got the equalizer, momentum shifted, so we should have really gone on full attack from there onwards. To bring on Endo in that moment, for me, it was just a reverse plot altogether. So wasn't pleased with that at all. And this is unfortunately our third game defeat on the bounce. And I'm not going to crash out, just based on recent events. But I am very concerned about this team. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I am concerned in terms of how we're playing. Right now, we don't seem to play with any identity. We didn't play the most attractive football last season in comparison to Jurgen Klopp's, but there was an ideology in terms of Arne Slot's methods. We knew that he was all about high possession and maintaining the ball, playing the more calm and composed way. So for me, I didn't disregard that because it's not my way of playing football. It's not what we're used to over the years. You have to adapt to new changes and new philosophies, and I was all with it. But this year it's been a bit of a strange one because he's not playing to that kind of level. And right now, I'm not sure what he wants from the team. Are we a forward pressing team or are we still trying to play from the back? It is very, very unclear right now. But there are a lot of issues, and I'm probably going to go on a bit of a rant. But just hear me out in terms of what I've got to say, and then I'll bring the comments up very shortly as well. Um, Slot's tactics today. The big talking point for me was no Chiesa. Um, and also moving Szoboszlai multiple times in the game. For me, that needs to stop. He needs to have a stable position. You can't be having a decent game at one position and then all of a sudden, because we have some frailties in other areas like right back, we have to always shift him there for the second half. For me, that's not acceptable. Gravenberch dropping to centre back for me is a bit of a concern, but after listening to the press conference after the game, Slot confirmed that Konate had a bit of a injury issue. He's got a quad injury, so that's why he was taken off. But at the time, I thought, you know, we've taken off a centre back who should be dominant in every part of his game, but we had to take him on because of his lack of sort of ball playing ability, in my opinion, because he was very sort of poor in terms of his distribution. Um, but yeah, the Chiesa one is a big talking point, and I'm not just saying it out loud because I rate the player. For me, Chiesa's arguably been one of our best attackers, but by a long stretch, to be honest with you. For Salah to play the whole game, and for me, that's the king right there. But he was awful today. His decision making in terms of the passing and even the shots that he took was just below par. Like there's something doesn't seem right with Salah right now. Um, and even Cody Gakpo, apart from the goal, he was quite poor with his decision making and his play. And it's clearly favoritism from Onslaught to always start certain players. Now with Salah, I would always start Salah ahead of anyone else just because of what he's produced over the years. He's got credit in the bank, and we know that he's capable of producing clutch moments, even if he's not playing at his best. But you have to be a bit more smart and a bit more articulate in terms of thinking about the current situation. You've got to look at the performance that is being presented to you. The team just hasn't clicked right now. Um, and you've got players that can come off the bench and have an impact. The likes of Chiesa, he can come on and change the game. So for me, there's clearly an issue between the coach and the player. I don't think Armstrong rates Chiesa, whether it's on a personal level of football ability, I don't know. But my question is, why keep him? Why didn't we just sell him in the summer? But that's just the tip of the iceberg for me in terms of today's tactics and today's performances. But there are a lot of issues, throughout our team. And looking at our game so far this season, one of the sort of the talking points in terms of our sort of low level performance is McAllister. I'm not saying he's the reason, but he's definitely one of the reasons. His lack of mobility and self awareness on the pitch is a concern. And you know, uh, watching him this season, I just don't feel like he's fully fit. I'm not making excuses for him. He just looks fatigued. I don't know if he's playing through the pain barrier. Uh, I'm not too sure what's going on with him. He's getting walked past. I say walk because he's not even getting breezed past. He's getting walked past like he's non-existent. And when you've got that kind of hole or gap in your midfield, you are literally playing, with one man less to your team. Like we're playing with 10 men practically in that matter. So for me, that's a concern. But in terms of the bigger picture, I'm concerned with the lack of press from our front players. And we've sold a lot of players this summer, and we have replaced them with probably better individual players. But as football fans, we should know that it's not always just buying big names for the sake of it. It has to be players that fit the ideology of the coach and the way we play. And I'm not saying these new players are not going to fulfill that potential. They will, but it's going to take time. So for me, the most concerning thing is the lack of press. Say what you will, Nunes might not have been the most clinical finishers, but he was a workhorse. He would literally be constantly pressing with his aggressive nature. Diaz, I feel like that's one of the players we really miss, if I'm being brutally honest with you. His work ethic, his tenacity in the way he plays, we lack that on that side of the pitch. That's why I always prefer Diaz over Gakpo. But some fans will tell you differently in terms of their preference. Um, even Mohamed Salah. The big question is why hasn't he delivered this season? Why hasn't he played to his level? I actually don't think the game plan evolves around him anymore, which is probably be a culture shock for him because over the years it's always been surrounded in terms of how he plays, and the game plan is based on his skill sets. This time around, the focus seems to be more on the main striker to score the goals, and because of that, you're lacking a bit of aggression or directness in his play. So I feel like that's going to be one of the factors in terms of why he hasn't performed. I'm not saying that's going to be the theme for the rest of the season, but I feel like he's probably getting accustomed to that. Whether that's he's pleased by that or not, remains to be seen. But clearly there's something happening there. And Florian Wirtz, he didn't start today. He came off the bench at halftime and what was better in his level of performance in my opinion. But generally, looking at his play so far, look, he's gonna take time to get used to the way we play and used to the league in terms of the speed and the intensity of the gameplay. But something that he needs to work on is his pressing because he's not a player that presses very high. So that is something he needs to adapt or bring to the table. Otherwise, if he doesn't have that capability of doing that week in, week out, then Szoboszlai should stay in that role. And I know this might not be a favored opinion by many, but play Verts from the left hand side. Not ideal, but it would provide a better balance because you've got Szoboszlai, who's the one that starts the pressing, which is what he did last year, and people took it for granted because people looked at his output. Oh, goals to assists is poor, but look what he brought to the team. He was the reason why we were so sort of progressive as a team because of him. He led the press, and that allowed us to move forward as a collective. When you don't have anyone pressing from the front, it goes to pieces. So you know, it's all good as well saying, oh, he didn't have the high G that we expected. Well, the club tried to rectify it by signing Verts, and a lot of fans aren't impressed with Verts, are they? So make of that what you will. Now, in terms of other players, Kirkes, at this stage, I don't know. I may be looking into this a bit too much, but I feel like he's been a bit misprofiled. And when I say that, there's been not today in particular, but there's been games where he's played a bit deeper and he's played more closer to the centre back, i.e. Van Dijk. I'm not saying he's been part of a big three or anything like that, but there has been tactics deployed earlier in this season. And if that's the way that we wanted to go, then he's the wrong player to have signed. We actually should have gone for Hato, who ironically plays for Chelsea, because when you have a defensive-minded left back like a Hato who can play centre back, he can transition into that role very well. And I was quite vocal about our signing Hato last season because I thought that the next step in Arsenal's phase or of his philosophy is to have a different way of playing with Trent not being at the club anymore. So I always thought that maybe the right back will be the guy that bombs forward, the Frimpongs and the Bradleys, which already are current options. And then the left back is the one that tucks in, so you end up forming a back three, and then you've got more balance on that side. Then Gravenberg and McAllister they can roam around a little bit more in that regards. But now we've got two fullbacks bombing forward countless times. And if you're going to play that way, you have to revert to a different formation. You have to have a 4-3-3 where you have a single pivot. You have a number six that literally does the Fabinho role, where he hoovers up the plays, he closes up shops. So that's what you need. That's the profile that you should be looking at. But right now I feel like Slott's doing too much. He's got a bit of a Pep Guardiola trait where he's trying to be too smart. He's trying to overdo it a little bit. He's trying to second guess his other team, opponents, all that sort of stuff. Um, because for Gravenberch to have a free role right now, it doesn't work. Like today, he was for most of the time the more defensive minded player, but unfortunately, McAllister, due to his lack of form, he wasn't progressive for us enough. So I think that's probably why that Slot's tweaked that tactic a little bit just to defend him because due to McAllister's influence in the game, we have to utilize Gravenberch. So that's why he's roamed around a bit more. And then you have McAllister dropping in more deeper roles. Today, that wasn't the case so much, but it's a concern. And look, I'm not just here wanting players to come left, right, and center, but that is a play that has to be addressed next summer. We have to sign another midfielder that is going to be a progressive player in our team. Someone that's able to provide different passing range from a deeper role, um, because that's something we lack in our team, and that can also do the dirty work, but has that in his locker as well. So yeah, that's something we'll have to look into. And back to Kirkers, I do feel like he's been misprofiled a little bit, but it might be game to game basis. We have to tweak our tactics a little bit, um, but we have to play to his strength in order for us to get the best out of him. And that is for me, it is his overlapping runs. I've seen an interview from a few years ago where he said that he actually likes to cut inside, but I feel like he's better on the overlap. He's more aggressive in that role, so that suits him. It suits our gameplay a little bit more as well. But Gakpo seems to think Kerkez is John Cena because he can't see him, literally. So that's been frustrating to watch because they never link up well. There's always a breakdown of you know communication because they're never on the same wavelength. So that's a concern. That's something that needs to be rectified on the training ground. And Kanate, being the player to build up play from the back, that's a concern as well. Like I said last week, this may come across as an unpopular opinion, but even if Kanate was to sign a new contract, which I doubt, but let's say that is what becomes a bit of a reality, Liverpool need to upgrade on him and sign a top ball playing centre back. I don't think we can rely on him as the second choice to Van Dijk. It needs to be one more person ahead of him, and Kanate as the third choice, so someone that comes in and covers for both centre backs. That's the kind of idea that I have going forward. And also in terms of right back, we haven't found an answer. We are missing Trent's passing range, which is always going to happen, unfortunately. Uh, but neither Bradley or Frimpong have held that right back position down, and so much so that Szoboszlai has looked like a better right back as a makeshift player. So there's a lot of concerns, and I'm not just crashing out because of today's performances. This is a collection of thoughts from all of the games that we've played so far this season. And because we've had 3 defeats on the bounce, it's become more visible that the issues are not just short term or temporary concerns. These are issues that need to be resolved very, very soon in order for us to compete in all cylinders. So, there's a lot of fans I've seen online today and on YouTube in terms of content creators that are suggesting, slot out. I'm not quite there yet. I'm not quite on that sort of ship. But I will say this: the pressure is on. You can't spend so much money, almost half a billion. Sorry, half a million. It's not 500K, £500 million, and buy quality individual players and not make it work. That doesn't make sense to me. Like other teams like Chelsea, United, they can splash the cash, let their managers do whatnot, and they'll still be in the job. Whereas for Liverpool, we don't really spend that kind of money. This was a very um non-typical way of how Liverpool did business this summer. We don't spend that much that much sort of money in one window. So, oh, if you collate it's 3 windows into one, I get it. But you know, the matter of the fact is that we spent a lot of money in the summer. So, you know, Slot has to find a solution. And look, Jurgen Klopp, I don't want to revert to the past, but he was never given a war chest, and we enjoyed some of our best football under his reign. So, look, the unpopular opinion right now is if this continues and we somehow concede the title at the end of the season, because I still believe, we have a strong position based on the players we have. So I'm hoping things will work out in the coming months, and then we start performing to our level. A conversation will need to take place in regards to his future at the club. I'm not saying Klopp slot out now. I'm saying that if this continues and we struggle towards the end of the season, then this is something that has to be discussed as the season concludes. But we're a long, long away from that, so that's not going to happen anytime soon. So what we'll do now is we'll present a graphic to do the player ratings. But before I do that, I'm going to go through some of the chat. Uh, Deleuze Steve, big up Deleuze Steve. He said, disgusting Oz. We become Amarin's United. I think that's a bit too harsh there. But look, I get the sentiment because, yeah, we've been absolutely awful in recent games. Salah should have won us the game. He had plenty of chances. And he blew some. Yeah, he did. He had plenty of chances. You're spot on there. Stu, Mac Bill says that the big question is, despite billions being flung, why is the EPO a piss poor product? I wouldn't say the Premier League is a piss poor product. I feel like we've got the most competitive league in Europe. And I'm not just saying that because we're the champions from a biased Liverpool point of view. A lot of our teams, they're stronger in comparison to like mid-level teams across the league. Um, but yeah, that's just my thoughts. It's a bit out of topic in terms of today's show, but I don't think that EPL is a piss poor product in comparison to our league. I don't think La Liga is any better. They've only got 2, 3 teams that are dominant. In PSG, you've literally got 1 or 2 teams. Same in the Bundesliga. Over here we've got a number of teams that, if they have luck on their side in terms of injuries and so there's a lot of teams that can compete for that league title. This is not a 1 or 2 horse race for the league title. Last year, it appeared to be like that because teams kind of fizzled out or weren't able to compete. But there's a lot of teams that have improved this season. So for me, I disagree with that. I don't think this is a piss poor league, in my opinion. But at the same time, my concern is not about the Premier League. My concern is about Liverpool, because that's the team I support and that's what the channel is based on. Um, how people see the Premier League is irrelevant to me. As long as my team is winning, that's all I care about. So, but no, I don't agree with that comment there. AR said, big up. I think you mean Ozzie instead of Ozzie there. And chat, assalamu alaikum. Welcome to AR. Smash the likes and subscribe. 3 loss in a row, question mark, needs to be on our slot and plays. Yeah, in terms of defeats, 100%. Stop panicked with his substitution. Oz, the last one is the most bizarre one for me. The Verts one, I get it. I personally would have just replaced Verts for McAllister and then put Szoboszlai in the double pivot alongside Gravenberch because you'd have got more energy and a bit more of a physical presence in that midfield. Um, and then just play Verts in that number 10 role because Gakpo didn't have the best of games, but he was still in and around the left hand side, so he was trying to make things happen. So you weren't going to take him off. So that's what I would have done rather than take off Bradley. But then again, Bradley didn't have the best of games, so I don't know. It's one of those situations where on both sides of the coin you have an argument, but I don't know. I wasn't that one slightly confused me a little bit because I would have gone for McAllister was awful in the first half. And in the second half, the big one is the Endo one. And I like Endo, you guys know that, but he wasn't needed in this game. We needed a goal, we needed to grab the winner. And you bring on Chiesa, who was another attacker on the bench. So why was he not brought on? That's my big question. So that was my issues. And yeah, look, the pressure might be getting to him if that's the case. But I felt like his philosophy kind of went out the window and he just became ultra negative because you don't a team like Liverpool, you don't just play for the point. Like I don't like seeing that. So If you've just got the equalizer very late on in the game, the momentum has shifted. That's why everyone said 1-0 is a very tricky scoreline because if the other team gets the goal, the momentum shifts towards them and they're the one that are more hungry to get the winner. It felt like that was going to happen, but that substitution kind of just mellowed it down for us and it didn't help us in the end. So yeah, I was quite disappointed with that one. Dude says through Chiesa. I totally agree with you. He's been doing everything right, but the manager still doesn't trust him. I totally agree with you. It's spot on because I said it earlier on that he's been the better attacker for us. Ekitike for me has been really good so far this season. Isak is showing traits like he did today, but he's not quite there yet. But other than that, Chiesa's the one that's been, producing late winners. He's been producing assists, against Southampton. I know it's not the Premier League, but in recent games, he's really showcased his talent. So I don't know what it is. Is it personal? Is it someone that he just doesn't rate from a footballing point of view? I don't know. It might be a mixture of both, but it's a concern because you have to present in terms of players that are in form. You can't just go off paper. If we're gonna do that, then I'm gonna have the same 11 week in, week out. You have to go based on form. You have to go based on tactics. You have to go based on who we're playing. And I feel like Chiesa would have done really well in this game, playing on that left-hand side, which is where I wanted him to play. I feel like he would have made more intelligent runs on that side. And then you may have got a more creative Salah. He might not have gone for shots. Um, on those occasions during the game, he might have tried to find Chiesa because I feel like Chiesa has better movement than Gakpo. Gakpo is very predictable in his play, whereas Chiesa, he's in between players. He finds little gaps and he finds himself towards the near post where he's able to score goals. So yeah, it clearly doesn't trust him. So it's a huge concern going forward. Delisi, if Slot doesn't beat Man United, he will be under real pressure. That's our next fixture, isn't it? After the international break. Yeah, if he doesn't get that win, oh yeah, a lot of us are gonna crash out. Let's not beat around the bush because it's United as well, and they've been so piss poor this year and for the last 2 years. You know, I'll say it from my point of view. I don't even bother like messaging my friends that are United fans every time they lose because it has become a norm. They lose all the time. So, it's like I feel like you're a bit of a bully by doing that sort of stuff. But this team is piss poor right now. I know they got the win today, and he may have saved his job there, which is good for Amarim. But this team is below par, and if Liverpool don't get the win, whew, I'm not saying it's going to paint the picture for his future or anything like that, but the pressure will be on. If it's not now, it will definitely be on. And I'm saying it's coming from upstairs rather than the fans. So I feel like the fans are really they're a bit split right now in terms of the energy towards Arne Slot. But it's one of those things where yeah, we can't lose to United. And we've got some tough fixtures coming. We've got Man City coming up in the next few weeks as well. So yeah, we need to fix up sharp. We really do. ARCO ratings there, I'm gonna add them after I've done mine. But AR's comment here is I don't know what he's got against Chiesa. He's using him as a scapegoat in the squad. Rio didn't travel because he took Rio from the Chelsea academy. If that's the case, that's a bit too sentimental for my liking. I'd bring him on. Like I wouldn't even have him on the bench. I would actually bring him on. I feel that's a bit silly if that is the case. Um, this season, everyone's rating three. We'll do my ratings very shortly. Slot nil. Yeah, I'm not gonna argue with that one. AR said we are playing slow, boring, unattractive football, passing side to side and backward passing. We didn't play well all season. Pressures on head coach Slot and current players shocking and embarrassing. That comment spot on. It really is. We're not playing a brand of football. There's no identity in terms of how we're playing. We're very sort of ultra defensive, no real energy in our play, no aggression. And that's in all departments, not just up top. And that's a concern. The key sort of traits that we had last season that helped us win the title. We're not playing in that kind of manner. So I know a lot of players have departed, but you have to replace those players the right way to elevate your game even further. It looks like it's gone the opposite way. So questions have to be asked in terms of the current setup, the current tactical approach, because it's not working and things need to change or revert back to how they used to be last season. Um, AR says, was that right back in the second half? Frimpong on the bench. Can he play right back? And Gomez can play centre back, right? Formation, tactics, and style of playing, bouncing. What is he doing? I don't like seeing Sabozza at right back, and I'm not just saying that because I see him as a midfielder. My issue is that he'll start in midfield for the first half, and then he'll get moved around to right back, and then we make another substitution. He's a number 10. He's playing too many roles in one game. That's not fair on the guy. Like he needs to have a stable position so he knows what his role is. And fair play to him, he's produced good performances all season round so far. So credit to him in terms of his application. But if that application was evolved around the whole team, then we would have a different dynamic altogether. Right now, we just don't have anyone that's pressing or showing any energy on the pitch. That's my concern for this Liverpool team. AR says first 6 games we were playing badly but winning. No one was talking about poor performances. The last 3 games we were playing badly and losing. We need talking in game performance issue exists. Yeah, I think that's what it is. With the first few games, we won those games due to winning from last minute winners and all that sort of stuff. And because of that, the performances kind of get swept under the rug because you're thinking, oh, end of the day we won. That's the most important thing. Um, and the common sort of reasoning would be there's a lot of new players, and I'm not saying that is not correct. I do agree with that. I think because we've made so many changes to our squad, the dynamics aren't there between the players right now. So that will take time to get into sort of full force. But right now, we still have to win games. It's not good as well. It, if there was too much to do, then maybe we shouldn't have signed so many players in one summer. In that sense, because I feel like we've pretty much switched up our whole squad. It's been a squad that's been taken out of its elements, and then a new players have been brought in, and it's a completely new team altogether. So these things will take time, but the signs aren't there. If the philosophy was still the same as last year or even better, but players just aren't performing to a level. We can see it, like we can envision, what the coach is trying to do. But I can't see it. There's no identity right now. We're just, we're just going through the motions, and it's not in a good manner. So it is a big concern. I can't lie. It also we have international break. Local fixtures: United, Frankfurt, Brentford, Palace, Villa, Real Madrid. Not easy fixtures at all. None of them are easy fixtures. Palace are still. I don't know if what was their result today. Did Palace win today? Let me have a look. 'Cause I haven't really checked into the other matches today. Um, no, so they're playing tomorrow. They're playing Everton tomorrow. So they're still unbeaten in the league. So there's a very strong defensive unit. Brentford probably been a surprise package for some. They've actually performed really well this season. Frankfurt, an away fixture will always be a bit difficult. United, my concern about the United game is that they're a terrible team, but in recent years we've always played the occasion in terms of that. Oh, it's big Man United. Oh, we've got to like that takes over. We don't look at the squad and be like, oh, this guy's dead or this team's rubbish. We don't exploit them in that manner. So that's my thing where we play the occasion and it's just like, oh, United Liverpool rivalry. This is the one of the biggest games in English football. I could not care less about that sort of sentiment. For me, we need to win games. Look at the players on face value. Forget the shirt that they're wearing. Forget the badge. You know, that's a piss poor team right now. We've got to defeat them. So hopefully we've got that kind of cutthroat attitude. Uh, because there's no time for sentiment, in my opinion. AR says we should have strategically gone into the transfer market in the summer and got the right players in the right areas. We should got the correct profile players. We still need, yeah, in terms of centre back, CDM winger, yeah, we do. You're not wrong. We do need those players, but even if we had added those players, that's a lot of players to just add into your squad in one summer. It's too much. if I'm being brutally honest. Over the years, we've never signed so many players like that. So that's my sort of concern going forward. Dara, big up Dara. He says Bradley is a magician. He made Garnacho look like a prime boss. Honestly, Garnacho is on one today. Yeah, he yeah, it's probably the best I've seen him ever play, to be honest with you. So yeah, Bradley is a magician. You might be right there. Dad said Ozzy should have had a penalty. I think so. It literally it's the same thing that happened to us the other day at Galatasaray, and we conceded a penalty. So for me, yes. But then I saw Arne's press conference, and he said, "Oh, it's different competitions, different rules. Football is a universal game. That's not how it should be." So I disagree with that. But I think he's trying to just protect himself to not say too much in that moment. Becky, we got bro. He says, "Bro, Chelsea became hard team to be beaten by Liverpool. And Liverpool keep waiting to beat Chelsea next season." Let's see how Chelsea do this year. But no, credit deserves to be for Chelsea. They were really good today. Considering your defensive issues as well, I feel like you managed the game very, very well, and you deserved all 3 points. So yeah, shout out to Chelsea and the Chelsea fans. I can't really uh, say anything negative towards them. For me, it's more about my team. My team was shocking, so got a lot more to say about them more than anything else. It has too much chopping and change this summer in the transfer market. We have no identity, no style of play, and no system. We talk about our slot and LFC players. This is awful. Yeah, I agree. Um, Pretty much what I've said so far in the show, but we have to be patient. I guess we have to just let the team evolve. Um, I saw a little glimmer of improvement today, but when I'm saying glimmer, I think I might be stretching to even say that out loud as well. So it's a concern, but let's see. International break. Maybe everyone just needs a bit of a breather, and then we'll just take it from there. So yeah, let's see how it goes. Dad says another one, Ozzy. Why didn't he start Hugo and Verts? I think with Hugo, just because he picked up that injury against Galatasaray, they didn't want to take that risk, which I understood to be fair. But I'm very pleased that he was available because we were hearing rumors that he might be out for 4, 5, 6 weeks. So thankfully, that wasn't the situation. So for me, that was a good thing there. And in terms of Verts, maybe just a different way of playing today. I think with Szoboszlai playing in his normal role from what he did last season, I think the the emphasis that we will press from the front, but if Isak still not getting accustomed to the way we play, he's not going to be the pressing monster that we expect. So these things will take time going forward. So we'll just have to see how it goes. But yeah, the concerns are there. It can't be denied. AR says, "Hi, Ozzy Dallas. That's the Becky. How are you? Blessing, greeting, respect. You're never welcome. Big up yourself, AR, as always." Now let's move on and do the player rating. So, um, I'll try and be as neutral or try and be as honest with my assessment. Yeah, let's see how it goes. So we'll start with the goalkeeper, Mamadashvili. Yeah, decent performance. In terms of the Caicedo goal, he got a fingertips to it. I, I saw it from the replay, but I'm gonna give the goal scorer the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna give him the praise rather than say goalkeeper should have done better. Maybe that's me being an attacking player over the years. That's coming in my forefront in terms of my thinking. But I feel like when you produce that kind of shot, um, it's you know, you smacked it top bins. Even though Mama that's really got it, it was hit with real power. So you got to give the round of applause to the goal scorer in that matter, which was Caicedo. In terms of the winning goal, point blank range, can't really blame him too much in terms of throughout the game. He made a few decent save. Gittins and Esteval produced two back-to-back shots there, which he ended up, producing saves in those moments. And there was a few other shots during the game. So in terms of his shot stopping, he was fine. Defense from a defensive sort of point of view, in terms of corners and set pieces, he was fine. With catching, distribution wasn't too bad. He produced quite a few good sort of long throws. Did it really quickly, and it produced moments that could have led to a real counter attack if it wasn't for certain sort of individuals, breaking up the move and all that sort of stuff. So I thought he had an average performance. I don't think he was um, fantastic, but I don't think it was awful either. So for me, I'm gonna give him a 5 out of 10. I think it was an okay performance. Um, I don't think it was spectacular. I don't think it was at fault or anything, but um, I thought he had a decent performance. Daz has gone for a 7. Um, Dara said Mac was anonymous, especially in the first half. Yeah, he was. He was. Um, I was like, come on, big up yourself. He commented during the watch and described it as him being a training cone. And I kind of I concur with that. He it literally felt like that at times during the game. Now on to Connor Bradley. Yeah, he didn't look too good either, did he? Well, Dara just described him as a magician, made Garnacho look like a prime Barnes there. Um, yeah, he struggled today. I don't know if it's, and I don't want it to be, but I keep using it as an issue. It's like, is there a fitness issue? Because he didn't look very sharp. There were times where he was running the ball and he ended up, just running into the Chelsea players. No real sort of thought process in terms of what he was doing. So for me, that was a bit of a concern um, in terms of his play. Didn't really provide an outlet for Salah, and that's one of the reasons why Salah is literally not being influential in our games because he hasn't got that passing outlet behind him. Trent would ping balls left, right, and center, and always find Salah on the run. Frimpong and Bradley aren't doing that. They've got a different way of playing, so that's why Salah's struggling. He's not getting the service that he wants from that side of the pitch. Um, so for me, not the best of games from Conor Bradley. Um, so look, if you feel like my ratings are harsh today, maybe it's still the emotions in my head or how disappointed I was with this performance. So just take over, take it with a pinch of salt. But also feel free to let me know your comments as well. So for Bradley, I'm gonna go for a 2 out of 10. I know that's low. Today you're gonna see a lot of low results. If I'm being honest with you, I wasn't pleased with our performance today. Even though I tried to add a bit of a positive spin and say there was some good, phase of play here and there, but quite frankly, most of it was absolutely awful. So for me, 2 out of 10. Nate, oh, not any better to be fair, maybe slightly better than Bradley. Um, Passing still of a concern. He's picked up a quad injury, so hopefully that's not something that's on a long term, because that that would mean Joe Gomez and Van Dijk are only recognised centre backs, and we're gonna have to go down the pecking order. We're gonna have to bring in Reece Williams into the mix, which is actually wild to say out loud, but it's a reality, unfortunately. So in terms of his performance, he was okay today. I don't think he was great. So I'm gonna give him a 3 out of 10. I'm not gonna give him anything higher than that. Van Dijk, I don't think he was that good today, to be honest with you. The first goal, I feel like he should have defended a bit better. Um, and there were parts of the game where I didn't feel like he was as dominant as his usual self. And I think the moment where he, squared up to Cucurella at the end of the game showed, his frustration in terms of the team, the performance, and maybe his own performance today as well. So I don't think he was, in his best sort of light today. So for me, I'm gonna give him a 4 out of 10. I don't think he was super today. So for me, that's a low rating for Van Dijk, but you'll see a pattern in terms of why I've given these kind of score lines here. Just gonna go through some of the chat before I move on to the next player. Where do we go? So AR says we were 5 points ahead of Arsenal. Now we are 1 point behind Arsenal. We have second in the Premier League, 17th in the UCL. I'm playing Palace in the EFL Cup. Yep. AR says 6 for Mount Dashvili. That's fair. I've just gone for a little bit of a low rating because of the whole team in terms of how we are. But no, 6 is fair. Could have been sent off to. Is that in regards to Bradley? Yeah, potentially. Um, for Bradley level tackle, if he tackle incorrectly, he can get a yellow card potentially. Yeah, he needs to tame that sort of aggression a little bit, not too much. I do like that in our fullbacks when they go crashing into players like that, but obviously in a professional manner rather than doing it to get red cards because that doesn't help us anyway. Um, so yeah, 4 is fair. I'll give him a 2. I wasn't pleased with him today. That's why did he not start Frimpong? Maybe he just didn't think he was the right fit for the game today. Maybe because of his more attack sort of minded approach to the game. Maybe he thought he wasn't needed today. I would have brought him on, to be fair. I did list him as one of my subs in the watch on during half time, but no, Slot had other ideas, I guess. Bradley does go for 1.5, 2.5 for Ibu. So yeah, I guess my ratings aren't too crazy then, I guess. Now in terms of Kirkez, Kirkez, I thought he was all right today. I say all right. I'm saying all right in terms of very low standards, not in high standards because I felt everyone was poor today. Um, he got very frustrated with Gakpo just because he made so many runs on that left hand side, but Gakpo just didn't see him, as I referred to earlier on. He had that moment where he was through on goal. For me, he should have shot rather than try to find Salah, who was close to the goal in terms of the distance and the range, but wasn't in a goal scoring opportunity or goal scoring position because he had two players around him. Um, but otherwise, I thought he was all right. I think Robertson came on and settled the ship a little bit on that side, but it did okay. Whipped in a few crosses here and there. Still needs to get used to the way we play. Still needs to improve on his sort of individual performance. But in today's performance, I'll give him. I think it was slightly better than Bradley, so I'll give him a 3 out of 10. Um, let's start with McAllister. Uh, I don't know what's going on with McAllister, to be honest with you. Um, he's just looked a shadow of himself so far this year. He's looked really, really poor. And today was no difference. There were elements I thought maybe he will play better today. Look, there were moments where I saw he was trying to have an impact. He was trying to run around more than usual. He was trying to get himself around the pitch. But the tactical awareness wasn't there today. He just didn't know. He was a headless chicken running around. That's what it felt like at times, and that could look, worse than it's perceived. So for me, in that part of this game, he wasn't there. Um, People were walking through him like he was non-existent. On the ball, he was very negative. A lot of sideways slash backward passes. Maybe did a progressive pass once or twice. So, that's why he's in the team. He's supposed to be that box to box player. He's the one that's supposed to find an eye in the needle type passes. He wasn't doing that today. So for me, that's a concern from him into his form. And I feel like he needs to improve a lot. So in terms of his rating, gets a 1. I can't give him a high rating. He was really poor today. I'm surprised that he even lasted most of the game, and that's another poor judgment from Slot. You should have allowed him to play that long because he was getting worse and worse as the game went on. So for me, yeah, not the right thing to do there. Groundberg for me was probably one of our better players today, in terms of his performance. I think with him playing in that more defensive minded role today, he looked better and uh, had moments where he was a bit more progressive, had a couple of shots as well. Um, in the second half, he ended up playing at centre back, did a decent job. Um, Question marks about the goal because it's when he literally carried the ball from the centre back position, lost the ball, and it led to that attack to the Istanbul goal. I'm not saying that's his blame, but some fans might perceive it like that. But I thought he was decent today, out of a bad bunch. So in terms of his rating, I'm gonna give him a 4 out of 10. I'm just gonna go through the chat, see if there's any more ratings there. Do you know how many games Kirk is away from a suspension? I think he's got 2 or 3 yellows, so I feel like he's got it'll be a couple games. I think he has picked up quite a few yellows so far, so I think he's a couple games away from that 5 match, that fifth match yellow, I guess, and then you get a 1 match suspension there. But no, I think he's a couple cards away, from what I remember. Kirk gets a 3 for me, so that's the same as me. McAllister's 0.5. Yeah, don't blame me for that, to be fair. Then you've given Gunberg 4 as well. So yeah, similar ratings there. AR says McAllister let Caicedo go past him with ease, and then that didn't block the shot. Robbo blocked the Estevao goal. Yeah, agree, spot on. I mentioned that earlier on. I think it was poor judgment from both players. McAllister let him go far too easy. He tried to outsmart him, but then the Castillo just made that run and had acres of space to hit that shot. And then Van Dijk kept on going back, showed his backside more than anything else, and it didn't make the block. So for me, you know, poor judgment from both players. And then Robertson, of course, is just lack of awareness for that Esteval goal, in my opinion. So yeah, not a good day in the office, unfortunately. AR says I'd rather have Simicast than Kirkes. It's a funny shout because a lot of fans would not have agreed with that, but I feel with Simicast, you might be right in terms of from a footballing point of view, in terms of end products and stuff. But right now, I don't think there was ever a chance of Simicast surpassing Robertson in the pecking order. Otherwise, it would have happened a long time ago. So because of that, his future was always going to be elsewhere. So yeah, I guess I understand what you mean, but it wasn't a realistic path for Simicast to be the first choice left back at the club. Um, let's move on to Salah. Oh, let me try and paint the positives first. More involved today. That's what I would say. He was on the ball a lot more. In recent games, he's barely touched the ball. This time around, he tried to be more of a creator, even though he did actually have quite a few shots towards goal. I say towards goal very lightly because a lot of them were missed, uh, you know, mistargeted. I guess they never really hit the goal. Um, so that's the positive. In terms of his negatives, a lot of negatives. His end product was awful today. Passing, apart from that Isak cross, the rest of his passing was quite mid. His decision making was poor. There were times where he should have passed, but he ended up taking shots, and vice versa. So he's just not there at all. Yeah, I don't think he was very good today. So for Salah, um, I'm gonna give Salah 2 out of 10. I don't think it was bad as McAllister, but he, he wasn't that far away anyway. So yeah, he gets a 2 out of 10. So what I think was probably our better player on the pitch. In midfield, he looked like the one that had the energy, presented some good pass. He had a few shots himself as well. I think one of the ones which was on the edge of the box, I think he should have done better. I went for the side-footed technique. For me, he should have lashed it with his laces. That would definitely rippled the back of the net. But overall played well. When he shifted over to right back, looked comfortable there. Made a couple of blocks. Intercepted a couple of challenges as well. So all round, I thought he had a good performance at number 10 position, I guess, on paper, and right back. So for me, definitely one of our standout players. So he gets a 6 out of 10 for me, which sounds like a very average score, but in the poor bunch, is actually one that stands out a bit more. Gakpo had a bit of a weird game for me. Today, he was more involved, similar to Salah on the ball. Um, he's not reading Kirkes' run. Kirkes making great overlapping runs. He's not reading it, and there's been a lot of sort of breakdown of moves because of those two not getting their act together. And he was, I feel like it's his style of playing. He's quite predictable in the way he plays. Um, Poor passes at certain times, poor touches. Um, the goal, of course, not a difficult goal to finish, but found himself in a good goal scoring position and got us the equalizer. So because of that, I probably boosted his rating a little bit more than usual. Uh, not the okay performance, not the best performance. So I'm gonna give him a 4 out of 10. Isak, I felt sorry for him because I feel like he lacked service today, like he did in the last fixture. Showed better sort of level performance today. He was pressing a little bit more, which was good to see, but I need to see more of that because we need more aggression from the front line. In terms of goal scoring opportunity, he had that header from Salah's effort. Other than that, didn't really trouble the keeper. So still a work in progress, still not quite there in terms of full flow. So for me, he gets a 3 out of 10. So that is My player ratings of the first team. Just gonna go through some of the comments here. Some good shots for Mo. He did, but a lot of them were going off target. So for me, he should have done better today. You've gone for 1.5 for Mo, and you've gone for 6 for Mo again. So which one is it? Is it 6 or 1.5 dollars? I'm not too sure. I've gone for 2 for Mohamed Salah. In terms of my man of the match, I'm gonna give it to Szoboszlai. Actually, wait, that's not how you do it. There we go. Szoboszlai, man of the match today. Not a difficult task for him, but that's the player that I've selected. So let's bring on the subs before we close the show. So Verts came on for Connor Bradley. I'll put the players in their correct positions as well. Uh, got Verts. Sorry. There we go. And then you've got Robbo for Kirkes or like for like substitution there. And then we've got Jones that came on for Kanate. And then we've got Ekatike like for Isak. And the final sub, which definitely confused a lot of us, is McAllister off and Endo on. So there he is, Endo on. So let's start with Florian Wirtz. I actually thought he had a good cameo. He was very positive in his play, in his output. He got around the pitch. He was pressing a little bit more than usual. Um, so I was, pleased that he had an impact. He just wasn't part of the furniture. Tried to have a sort of different effect on the game, but at the same time, there were quite a few misplaced passes. Uh, Still not in tune with the players in the team. So for me, he needs to do a little bit better, something to work on in training. But was a better performer from the bench than others, in my opinion. So for Florian Wirtz, I'm going to give him. I'm gonna give him a 5 out of 10 for his rating. In terms of Robertson, I actually thought Robertson did well when he came on. He, settled the ship a little bit. He made some good runs, tried to deliver some good crosses. So he was more on the positive side, in my opinion. Uh, was he at fault for the goal? Unfortunately, it was down to his awareness around that wasn't the best. So I had to, put his score down a little bit. So I'm gonna give him a 3 out of 10. Jones was decent as well. He definitely tried to add a bit more of a sort of a positive spin to our midfield, where he was the ball carrier to some extent. Had a shot very late on in the game. For me, should hit the target. He went over the bar. So yeah, decent performance from Jones. Not as impactful as he has been in recent games, but still tries to do his thing. So I'll give him a 3 out of 10 as well. Um, Ekatike didn't get involved as much. In terms of his pressing, he was a bit more active in comparison to Isak, but I think that's because of the level of match fitness. Ekatike's had a full preseason, so that's the difference there. Um, but yeah, a few neat flicks here and there, decent play on the channels. So not a very impactful game today. So I'm gonna give him I'll give him a 3 out of 10 as well. Um, Endo, I can't really give him too much of a score. I'll give him 3 because I've been giving 3 to everyone just as the average rating for some. So I think it'd be unfair to give him 5 because he didn't play great. That's normally the rating I would give when we've had a good performance. But I think today 3 sounds about right. If I was to give him 2 or 1, you'd assume that he's been awful, but it was nothing to that nature. So for me, I'll give him a 3 out of 10. Just gonna go through some of the comments. Dad's saying Don played good today. Yeah, I thought he played well. Would you have brought young Rio on? I would have brought on Chiesa first, and take it from there. I think in that game it wasn't really about having a hasty player. I wanted a more of an intelligent attacker, someone that makes the runs in behind, but also can find themselves in different positions in the box. We needed a bit more of a goal scoring threat from that left hand side. Rio is good on the outskirts in terms of playing on the byline. But I think with Chiesa, we know what his end product is about. So I would have definitely played Chiesa, and that's why it's annoying because he was on the bench, he was available, and we never played him. So for me, that's the more frustrating thing. But Rio will definitely get some game time in the coming weeks because we will definitely need a lot of our attackers going forward. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to let's start from the top. Deluded Steve, Stu Mac, AR. Who else do we have? Dara, Becky, Daz. Who else do we have? I think that's it. So big up yourselves, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Yeah, if you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. In terms of upcoming show, we'll have a break tomorrow. We'll have a day off, try and get this result out of our minds. And then from next week, it's international break, so maybe I'm going to switch up a little bit. We'll do some transfer related shows if there's any sort of rumors flying around. We might do some FC26 live streams as well. So I've done that in the past, and yeah, not really produced good account of myself. So I'm gonna have to practice a little bit and yeah, try and just do something for fun. So do some FC26 content in the coming week. And then we'll probably just do some more impromptu shows as well. So best thing to do is hit that notification bell so you know exactly what type of show or what time I'm going live. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and please don't let this result affect your mood and your weekend. And hopefully I'll see you guys next week. Goodbye.